Hey everyone! In this video we are going to take a look at file operations in Python. Python makes it really easy to work with files. When you're working with files, you need to know what kind of file you are working with. Here I don't mean the extension of the file, but whether it is a text file or a binary file. Text files are the files which contain only textual information like our code files, whereas binary files include files like image files as well as video files. Working with files is very simple in Python. First you need to open a file, and finally you need to close that file. In between you can do your work with that file. When you want to open a file, you can use the built-in function open. It takes a couple of arguments. First one is the file name you want to work with. We will see other arguments down the road in this video, but for now let's keep it simple. Let's say I want to work with sample.txt file. Here I just wrote the file name. This means that this sample.txt file exists in the current directory. If it was in some other directory, you would need to provide the full path to that file. Let's assign it to a variable sample file. This open function returns a file handle. This is a kind of file pointer. And finally, we close this file at the end using close method. It's best practice to always close the file once you are done with that file. We will fill up the middle part later. Let's run this code and see, and it throws file not found error with this message. There is no such file or directory sample.txt. So it didn't find this file in the current directory, and that's why it raises this file not found error. Before we can read a file, first we have to write that file. For this, we first have to open a file, then we have to write to a file, and finally close that file. We can use the same function open to open a file, but we can provide the second argument to this function, which is the file mode. Earlier, when we used this function, we didn't specify any mode for it. But by default, it opens in the read mode, which can be specified explicitly using R. We can write W for opening a file in write mode. Once we have this file handle, we can write to this file using write method on this handle. Let's write hi in the text file. Finally, we need to close the file, so we call samplefile.close. There is also an attribute you can use to verify if the file has been closed. You can use samplefile.closed attribute to verify if the file has been closed already. If I run this code, it runs successfully. And here you can see in the console, I have this true printed for the closed attribute of file object. This means the file was successfully closed at the end of this close method call. If I open File Explorer in VS Code, you can see this new file sample.txt. And if I open this file, you can see that it has this text hi. Write method writes whatever text you pass into it. Let's write hello, and at the end I am adding new line character. Now if I rerun the code and take a look into the file, you can see that it has this text hello as new content. It overrides the older file content with new content. When you open a file in write mode, it looks for that file, and if it exists, it will open that file. And when you write data, it will simply overwrite the existing data. If the file doesn't exist, it will create a new file and then write to that file. If you want to append data to already existing file, you can open file in append mode using A. If you modify this text to how are you and rerun this code file, you can see that our sample file has both lines. It didn't override the existing text hello. It just appended the new text how are you to the end of existing file content. This file opening and closing pattern is so common that Python even provides a shortcut way to do the same thing. I can write with open sample.txt in append mode as sample file. Here, first I have to specify the open function and then as keyword to create a file handle. This opens a code block with a file handle in the scope. Here, you can do any task you want to do with the file, and finally, you don't need to close that file. When this with expression block exits, it will automatically close that file, so we don't have to explicitly close it. We can write multiple lines from a sequence using writeLines method. So if I create a list, stir list, and assign a list with elements A, B, and C, down here if I write sample file.writeLines and pass stir list as argument, I execute this code, and now if you see into this sample.txt file, it has the content A, B, and C. If you need them in a separate lines, you have to provide \n at the end of each element of this list. Now that we know how to write a file, let's go back to reading this file. Before that, let's write some text in the sample file. In this, I'm writing few lines that we are going to try to read. Hi there, how are you? And this is a sample file. This is all it contains in this sample file. In this with block, I just have to replace this append mode to read mode. This is the default for open function, so we don't need to specify the file mode. Inside the with block, we can use readLines function to read complete file in one go. It returns an iterable with each line as its element. So we can assign it to a variable lines, and I can iterate through this list. In each iteration, I print that specific line. Now if I run this code, you can see that it prints each of the lines from the sample.txt file. It has two new line characters, one that we have in each line of the file, and another one which is print functions and attribute, which is by default new line character. We can also use read method on file object, and that will read the complete file. If I modify this read lines to read and wrap it inside the print function, if I run this code, you can see that it prints the complete file content. We can also specify the bytes to read. If I say read 5 bytes, it will read first 5 characters. If I call sample file.read5 again and print it, you can see that it prints the next 5 characters. So it keeps a pointer at a location up to which we have already read. Python removes that pointer once we close the file, and that's why whenever I rerun this file, it starts from the beginning of the file. If you want to restart from any specific position, you have to use the seek method. So if I call sample file.seek of 0, it will reset the pointer back to the 0th position. If I run this code, you can see that because the pointer was reset to the 0th position, it prints the same 5 characters from the beginning 2 times. There is also readLine method which reads just a single line. This is how you can work with file objects in Python using built-in function open. I hope this video was helpful in explaining file operations. If you found this video useful, hit the like icon and click on the subscribe button to get all the latest content whenever I publish them. Also, if you have any questions or recommendations, post it in the comments section below. I do check each and every comments posted here. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.